Hey, welcome. It's Them Boys Watch Footy. Hope everybody's doing well today. It's your boy E. We have some very special guests for you today. We have Marley Wilson and Marcus Myrick. How you guys doing today?
Good to be here. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Marley, how you doing, boss?
Doing good, man. Thanks for inviting us. When you said that Marcus was going to be on, I was like, what an opportunity. Eminem in the building. Marcus and Marley, Eminem.
Love it. These gents have been pretty instrumental in my career. Marcus, I used to work with over at the Colorado Rapids. He kind of really showed me the ropes when I was getting feet wet out working in soccer, my very first job outside of MLS. And then Marley, super helpful within my career. I started working with him outside of Colorado, working for New York with Relevant Sport. And we were able to do some great things, helping the Colorado branch actually explode the International Champions Cup that year. Had the best sales that entire time. So just really happy to have these gents on. I want to give them a second to introduce themselves. Let's start with Marley here.
Thanks, E. Appreciate it. Yeah, I've been in soccer for such a long time. I think before we got kicked off, me and Marcus were talking about some of the wonderful memories, Kodak moments we had together in Colorado. I started as a young coach there, took my D license at 16 years old, then kind of realized as my career went on and started to have kids, I wanted to be away from the field and be more of a family man. I found a passion for administration. I felt administration was a tipping point in the sport. And the tipping point is we needed to continue to organize the game, keep players and coaches and referees and everyone involved in the ecosystem on the field. And I think we need more support as the game was evolving, right, and being relevant. So I went more behind the desk and really flourished from there, got many opportunities from working at the State Association in Colorado to being a match commissioner for US Soccer with Open Cup games, and then getting a real big opportunity with US Youth where I became a general manager, oversaw 14 states that led into overseeing all the cup competitions, league competitions, touch a bit of the referees all over the country. So kind of really was at the right place at the right time, was able to grow my career. And then during COVID, just made a decision of, hey, I've been on the road, traveled the country, traveled the world. I've done some amazing things from being a soccer agent to coaching in Mexico with the Olympic program out there, identifying players for the women's team and just doing all these wonderful things. And I thought,
amazing.
Hey, now it's time to give back, and I'm here at Cal North. So
love to hear it. Love to see it. Yeah, see, you got your prime out there as well. So
I love
you were sponsored to a T.
Yeah.
And then as well, Marcus, take it away, boss.
I appreciate it. Marcus Myrick, currently Vice President of Club Services for United Soccer Leagues. Really what I do there is really helping grow the game. And grow the game, as Marley mentioned, from an administrative side. So having the ability to work at all levels of the club, from ownership all the way down to that entry-level person, like just how we met. That's just getting their feet wet and starting to sell tickets, really, and help grow the game even more so at the local level. So for me, it has been an absolutely exciting ride. I got connected to it. Shout out to my man, Jeff Almeida, back in ninth grade, Argentinian, who introduced me to the beautiful game. Also, shout out to my PE coach from elementary school, Emerson DePaiva, Brazilian. So I realized now, looking back on it, as I was thinking about it, I was like, man, where did I get all this passion for the game? My first introduction to the game was from Brazilians and Argentinians. So that's how I fell in love with it. And when you realize how much good that the game can do, and as Marlon mentioned, the administration and the evolution of it, the business evolution of it, where it's gone from being truly about sport now that there's some monetary value that can be placed on this, and it's an asset for those that are looking to grow and give back and invest and create some type of wealth. It's a beautiful thing, and that requires stewardship. So for me, that's really what this has been about. How do we take something that's really beautiful, global in nature, and use it to impact everyone in a positive manner, whether you want to grow your career in sport, whether you want to become a player, whether you want to become an administrator. There's room for everybody in this game. And the beautiful thing is that it is truly global in nature. You can go anywhere, have that conversation with just about anybody, and you're going to find out they have some connection to the game.
Amazing. Completely agree. A lot of things that we've been talking about on this podcast have been about community impact building, really just trying to make sure that people understand just how important footy has been on a global scale, and then you can actually shrink it down to just your community grassroots level to make sure that you're growing it and helping other people understand like where they are with the sport. So really happy to hear you on that. So want to start it off a little bit of softball questions right here. Start off with you, Marcus. After you gave such a great, eloquent start, let's go with: can you explain like your core day-to-day functions with USL? Help our listeners to understand like how they can contribute to the overall success of the league and like where you fit in with everything.
Well, the easiest way is if you're local, if you've got a USL club in your vicinity inside of 90 minutes, go support it. There's a lot of really positive things happening at the USL level. Whether that's the transfer of players, you're starting to see the younger players are coming through. It's an analogy that we actually used to use in MLS back in like 03, 04, 05. Hey, come see the next big thing before they're really the next big thing. I'll never forget this. Marley, you might even remember this one. We did that autograph signing. I think it was like 03 or 04. And we had a series of autograph signings. And this was the series. It was Landon Donovan, Clint Dempsey, and Freddie Adu.
Oh,
right?
Yeah. Yes,
it was absolutely phenomenal. So that's what I do is I really try to help our owners at the USL level understand that this is truly a global thing and that you can have a significant impact on not only on your community, but also on players. And then working with the business people to say, like, this is how you can sell this. Because it's not the easiest thing in the world. No, it's not. It's not the NBA, it's not the NFL, it's, depending on where you are, it's not the NHL, it's not Major League Baseball. It's still at its core function. How do we get people in to embrace the game, embrace your local team and really build it up? There was a point in time where nobody knew who Wrexham was. Like,
Very
unless
true.
you really truly followed the game, you didn't know who Wrexham was. Right? And now Wrexham's a global phenomenon. Why? Because you got smart business people coming in, investing in the club, telling a story. So that's what I really try to focus on at USL is like, how do we work with the owners? How do we work with the people day to day that are really trying to build this thing and build something positive inside of their community? And then also providing a stabilization for that club so that they can be around 15, 20, 25, 30, 40 years down the line. It's a wild thing for me to look back and say, hey, in 2026, MLS is going to be on its like 30th year. That's a crazy thing to say. Like and I'll never forget what Don Garber said at one point. I want to say it was like maybe 08, 09. He said there are kids today that don't know a world without MLS, and that really impacted me because I was like, he's actually right.
Yeah.
Because I'm really not that far removed from not knowing a world that doesn't have MLS, right? So how do we create that now where people say, hey, I don't know a world where there's no professional soccer available to me in my community, whether it's MLS, USL, or any other of the other people out there really trying to do the thing and really truly grow the game. And what we have here at USL is very special. We're expanding like crazy. Jack, I promise you, there's probably a USL team coming somewhere near you.
Very
you can
true.
get involved and help support that and really, truly grow the game.
Yeah, you also have men's and women's. You have the USL Super League coming on. So a lot of amazing things going with that. Marley, want to direct the attention over to you as well. Kind of give you the same question, just frame it for youth soccer. Like you've been in it forever, but now you're pres with a youth soccer organization out in California. Love to hear like core functions, some things that you see day to day, some things that you have to deal with on a very large scale, small scale. Just help the listeners understand like your time.
Yeah, I'm going to bring you guys into this conversation because I think it's something that is pretty apparent and people can really just take a moment to digest it. But here in California, it's beautiful today. It's sunny, and we can literally play 12 months out of the year, right? Here in Sacramento, where the office is based. Marcus, you've both been in Colorado. When does it shut down? When does it?
We usually shut down right around November, December, and then we're not seen until about March,
Nah,
April.
nah, not true. Not true.
Really?
Indoor facilities,
Oh,
man.
that's true. That's true.
There,
The
it's
futsal
not. There's
side.
not enough of them, but there are some. Because again, if you look, it was Boulder Indoor, Peter Ambrose and those guys. They had a great facility. I know Fort Collins now has a facility up that way. Colorado Springs has a facility. So to that point, Marley, you're not wrong. It's hard to play outside in the middle of 25 and freezing,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right?
So that's what I'm saying.
Very
So
hard.
like when you ask me like like how what is soccer like? You've got to look at the landscape. You've got to look at geography. You've got to look at all these different things that play into it. If you look at the national team, once upon a time, there was a lot of kids from California. That landscape has evolved, and you're seeing players come up from different parts of the country, and people like that kid came from which state? From there. Where California did produce a lot of those players, right? We just mentioned Donovan, and we mentioned some. You can go on for days with California players. I think I want to just make sure that we recognize this. Marcus just said it. Indoor soccer. This person's got an indoor. This person's got an indoor. This person just got an indoor. The game is evolving. Facilities are starting to be built. And it doesn't just support the youth, it's supporting the pros as well, the semi-pros. One of the things that we would never, ever be able to get close to is the school facilities and the university facilities. If we could have some kind of partnership with the school facilities and the universities. High school soccer here is in the winter time, which is in December, right? And I never forget something that Henri told me. We were sitting in a hotel. I can't remember what hotel it was, and we're at the top of this hotel. We're sitting having breakfast, and he said, "Guys, I wanna bring something up." And he said, "Let me ask you a question. When I played at Red Bulls, you guys know Dax, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, we know Dax." He's like, I asked Dax, how many months of the year when you was at 20 years old, 18 years old, how many months you trained? And he said, "Well, just the college season." And he went, "That's 3 months, right?" Yeah.
Mm.
Me, Clairefontaine, Dax, all year. So the time, Dax, you turned 21 and I turned 21, think about how many hours I had more than you, right? So we talk about, pay to play. We talk about certain barriers. We talk about certain things. Is the game healthy and alive? Yes, it's intact. It's operational. We can always do more, right? We can always try and solve hunger problems, electricity problems, fuel problems. The reality is with soccer, the game is growing and evolving. We just have to make sure we have the right people to continue to shape the game in the direction it needs to go. Okay? And at the youth side, we have to focus on parent behavior, coaching education, referee education, facilities, volunteers, administrators, technology. All of these things are going to feed into the ecosystem. Sometimes we're a part of the problem. Sometimes we focus on too much risk management. We create all these different layers to get a coach on the field. And the time a volunteer looks at it and sees a check mark of 20 things, then we're pushing people out of the game. So we've got to find things that are realistic. We have to use common sense. I think that, again, there's a lot of things that are driving the game to be successful. And I think the World Cup coming is going to be huge for us.
Agreed.
Huge. And I think, I wouldn't say it's going to be a turning point because I can't rub that golden lamp. But I do think that if we don't use that opportunity to, grow the game and put some initiatives in place, it's going to be rough.
Completely agree. And I do want to bring it back to something that you did bring up, pay to play. Like, especially within your position, like And Infantino, head of FIFA, he brought it up earlier this year when he came to the U.S. Just want to kind of hone in on that space. Like, what are your personal thoughts? But what are your what do you have to work through with different families, especially in your role, like explaining like pay to play, why people have to do it, things like that.
Yeah, I saw that article. So the timing of the question or the relevancy is right there, right? So,
Yeah,
you know, let's be real. You can't go in New York where you're based out of and say, hey, let's just have this field and everyone just go play for free and let's find a referee that's going to go out here for free and get shouted at and the list goes on, right?
yeah,
It's not a reality and it's not a culture that we can adopt tomorrow. So look, I know this. There is pockets of soccer that if there's a park and people can go play and it's a community park and everyone can just show up, then that's an opportunity to remove those barriers. But we also got to be cognizant and use common sense, right? If we want certain parts of the game to be realistic and have an element to it where there's an expectation, it's going to be somewhat have to be paid. Whether you pay for the field, pay for lights, pay for referees, pay for a jersey, you're going to have to do that. In some geographical locations and culture, coaches know if they want to coach, they're volunteering their time. Even the professional EPL clubs, you could be the academy coach at Arsenal and you could be barely getting a per diem and travel money just to make it as a coach. It doesn't mean that you're
hmm
guaranteed a big salary, right? And these clubs are now starting to evolve because their academies are evolving. But I just take England as that example. Many of my coaches were all volunteer at a young age, and they were never getting paid. They wouldn't even think about asking for money, right? It was just like you were grateful to be the U15 coach. Like you were on the
yeah,
waiting list for that. So, pay to play, I can see in there's two things that we say, right? Do we bet with our heart or our wallet? In my heart, yeah, I want it to be free. In my
hmm
wallet, it ain't gonna happen, man.
yeah.
It ain't gonna happen. We can try and create as a state association opportunities, which we do, but to really remove that for US Youth has over 2.8 million soccer players. To do that, I just don't see it happening. Pockets will.
Oh, yeah, completely. That it is going to be a very interesting conversation, especially with the World Cup upcoming. That question is just going to be asked tenfold. Marcus, I know working with you, we had the academies that we were always bringing in. We had a lot of the different youth soccer teams that we're also bringing into the stadium. So, kind of want to also direct that question to you, especially now if you're spaced with the USL, bringing out different fans, seeing different children go to these games that are also part of soccer teams. Like, where's your stance on the pay to play model?
For me, I agree with Marley and what he said. I want to reframe it. For me, it's not necessarily whether it's pay to play or whether it's free. It's the accessibility piece for me. Like, how do we
Yeah,
make the game accessible,
yeah,
right? Um, I'm from an area that, by PG County, shout out,
Hey,
right? PG County has produces a lot of great athletes. But when I was growing up, soccer was not readily available. It was very easy to go find football. It was very easy to go find basketball. It was easy to find lacrosse, but soccer wasn't exactly the easiest to find. So how do we make sure the game is more accessible? And I think, that's one of our, kind of our pillars at USL is to bring soccer to local communities, right? So, this just came out. This is actually in Marley's neck of the woods. We're trying to figure out how could we put a team in Modesto, right? How do you put
hey,
a
we're
team in
getting it
Modesto?
first. We're getting it first.
How do we get, we got a team in Fresno, we've got a team in Monterey Bay, we've got a team in Sacramento, we've got a team in Oakland. Like all four of those clubs are basically inside of 2 hours of each other, right? So how do we make the game more accessible? And I think this is part of the thing that we're doing at USL as well, is sharing with owners, like, look, you need to have a junior program, but the junior program, its goals are different. And I think this is where the pay to play model and the academies at the professional level are going to differ. The academy at the professional level is designed to do one thing and one thing only, and that's to really produce professional players. Period, point blank, end of discussion. That is its role, because you have to look at the players as an asset to the club. The Brazilian model is almost built exclusively on this, right? Where the Brazilian clubs are saying, look, we want to go win on the field with the first team, but the money for us is how do we develop that next generational stud so that at 18, Real Madrid, Liverpool, Barcelona, Ventus, Milan, they're all throwing 40, 50 million euros at us to get the kid's signature. That's what the pro club is about. Okay. That's really what it has to be about. And along the way, you're going to develop some other really solid professionals, may not make it to the first team. You're going to produce some players that may go on to play in college, but it's an investment level. Now, what that investment level looks like, it might be pay to play. It might be completely free and completely subsidized by the club. But to Marley's point, somebody's footing the bill.
Agreed.
Right? Yeah. Somebody's footing the bill. So I think for me, it's the accessibility of it. How do we make the game accessible for all so that we don't miss out on, the next Lindsey Horan. You don't miss out on the next Mallory Pugh. You don't miss out on the next Sophia Smith, right? All for the simple fact that they didn't have the access to the game.
Very true. Yeah. That's something, just continuing the point about impact and community play. People like you guys are doing the work really on the ground, especially making sure that people understand. So it's really good to hear like we're hitting on those points. Little quick switch up before we get into more questions. Wanted to thank all of our listeners again, giving Dem Boys Watch Footy. Listen today. We are on YouTube. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts, wherever you want to listen to your podcasts on footy. Here with Marley Wilson and Marcus Myrick. We're talking about all things footy with these gents. Wanted to give over a quick question for you both. It's a little bit more fun. I'm not going to ask you about pro relegation, but I do want to understand your thoughts on the system in the U.S. as it is now. If there are any tweaks that you have that within the U.S. that we should start to look into developing further. So anything that kind of piques your interest or you want to discuss now?
I would say this, and I think we should create this more of a discussion than just get a question and answer. I would say, Marcus, you've been in the game, you've watched USL, you've watched MLS, you work in an office that sees this, you've seen the youth level. How would you say for a happy ecosystem to tweak it, what would you say that would create that environment? I'm just going to throw it out there to you like that way.
When I really think about this question, for me, I don't think you necessarily need pro rel. Yeah. But what you do need is you need a high pressure environment.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. And I look at my own experience, playing basketball. Again, PG County. For those that don't know, PG County produces like
ballers,
like ballers. Okay.
Yeah.
Like Kevin Durant, Ty Lawson, Michael Beasley are all inside of like 5 miles of each other. And that's just guys from like the early 2000s. It stretches all the way back. There's pressure there. You play in pressure environments, whether it's, elite middle school games, right? Where I'm talking like, 600-700 people at a 7th, 8th grade basketball game. I've been a part of those. Right? It's insane. Where whether you're playing in high school and you're playing in front of 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people. Again, that produces pressure, and pressure we all know that's how you create gems, right? So
no, you're right, and that's what I'm saying. Like, how can you do that at the youth level? Because we have all these acronyms out there. We have a men's platform for that. We need to build a women's platform for that, right? And now we have a men's platform, a women's platform, and then the youth platform needs to come into it. I don't want to use any acronyms, but we need all these acronyms to play off against each other, like an Open Cup in the youth system, to really see who that team is, right? And who that club is. We need it on the women's side too. They need to get something going, right? They need their own version of the Open Cup. And I think it's good that we continue that. But I think culture has changed a little bit. And the Open Cup is still there. It's still relevant. But we don't enhance the Open Cup and give it the platform that it deserves. Because, I'll just say it, a USL team or a men's Sunday league team, they could end up playing the MLS team in one of those rounds, and that's cool. So
Mm-hmm.
the pressure that Marcus is talking about, I just think it has to happen for the good of the game. You know what I mean?
Completely agree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think also it's really it gets back to people like Marley who really are doing this for the right reason. You know, Marley's not. Well, I don't want to speak for him. I don't want to speak for him. I was gonna say Marley's not in this to get rich, but I don't want to speak. I don't want to speak for him.
So, I'm not rich, but I definitely have a picture, right?
Yeah, I think it's more just my belief throughout this whole process, this journey, has been that if you can help develop people, right, you just don't know how far the game will carry them,
Yeah.
right? And I think far too often, and we see it on the youth side, it's like, hey, oh, we've got to beat this team next week. This coach is my arch rival. I'm like, man, you're playing under nines. What are we talking about here?
Yeah.
Right? Hey, you have an arch rival at 9. Like, how about we help the kids get better? Right? How
I
about we
think
help the kids get better?
That definitely needs to be the point of emphasis for all of U.S. football right now.
Yeah.
So
How do we help the kids get better? I'll never forget. Lauren Donaldson had one of the great moments, I think, in the development of a lot of players, and this was the early stages of DA, right after we had gotten in, and his Real Colorado boys team came over, played Rapids. I think it might have been under 17s, 16s or 17s, and that Real team had like 2 or 3 pros in that group. You could tell even at that age, and they lost the game. And I'll never forget Lauren Donaldson having a conversation with his team afterwards and talking about, if you guys want to get to the next level, you got to be better. And I remember sitting there just watching his team take this, and some of the parents had frowns on their faces, and I was like, he's telling you the truth. At college, everyone can play. At the pros, everyone can play. Everyone is good. So I think that it's just creating a pressure environment, but a pressure that's a good pressure, that's designed to help propel that player as far forward as the game wants to take them.
Yeah, I agree. But about a tangible solution for creating that pressure, the U.S. Open Cup gives teams an avenue to play in the Club World Cup. Right now, that field has expanded upcoming this year from, it used to be around 16, now it's 36, I want to say. And a lot of players are starting to complain about the additions to the league. Like all of these matches that are coming up, they're going to be playing up until probably the end of June into July this year. It's a lot of games on a lot of these players. But this pressure that you're talking about, is there another way to add or ratchet up that pressure, especially within the U.S.? Like, Marley, you made a good point about the women's side really needing a platform to do that. I think the U.S. Federation is trying to understand ways outside of just the NWSL, outside of just the USL, of trying to create that type of cup environment, because as we're seeing overseas, the women's game overseas is also growing to a nice extent, but they still do have some pro relegation over there. Outside of adding pro rel, I would say just start having more interconference friendlies or interconference battles, and you do like a little tally at the end of the year about who wins the most matches and who doesn't. So kind of like we're doing with the cup with Liga MX right now, something like that.
It's happening. Look, the women's game is healthy here, right? The women's national team, they've been the world champions for a reason for so many years, right? So the game is healthy. The fact that Barcelona women's team came over here and played BFC in PayPal Park is a historic moment, right?
Huge.
Young soccer players aspiring to be on that field saw that game. So like, the game is healthy. It's just making sure that as things continue to grow and the men's game expands, then the women's game continues to get closer and closer and closer, because we wouldn't be the world champions for no reason. And with that being said, like, having that competition only elevates a women's Sunday league team here from playing in that Open Cup, or a youth team going, I can play in that Open Cup. So it's in a good place. But I think there's also that business side to it too, right? Because financially, how do you support that? How do you do that? And I think something that I think is a good takeaway for all of us is accessibility. And Marcus said it, like being able to access a game and go watch it, being able to access a competition, being able to access a team in Modesto and Fresno, right? These are all access points, right? New York, you can access most little sports courts and there's going to be a basketball hoop, right? That's
Yeah.
access. So I think the game is healthy. We just got to continue to push the conversation we all want to have. And maybe USL, maybe MLS may do Pro Rail at some point and shock the world because there's a business model to support it. But the number of games, look, the game's evolving. The Champions League is now playing more games. Okay. The World Cup has more teams, which means more games, right? So whether I like it or not, like you said, I get a paycheck. I have to do more days, more Saturdays, more Sundays, right? If that's what the game needs, then that's what you do. And then you can be Jurgen Klopp and say, look, my time's done. I gave you all I can give. I got my paycheck. Now I'm going to go sit on the beach. So if players get to the point where their body can't take it, then they need to make that decision. But everyone's receiving a paycheck to do a job. And we have to follow through of our job as leaders. And to sit here and say, like, it's too many games, I don't know. Is that, like, when you played at a young age, would you complain you're playing too many games? No. So there's a cultural thing as well about too many games and too many this. Like, come on, back in the day, you never complained about the number of games or the number of tournaments. You were ready to go. So that's just my opinion on that one, you know?
I think you bring up a good point, Marley, when you talk about the business aspect. And this is where I think we're all called to be really great stewards of the game. And the players they do have a point here, right? It's a lot of matches. You're asking someone to go out and put in, I'm trying to remember who I saw. I think it was one of the Argentinian players. I think it was
Julian Alvarez.
Yeah, it was Julian Alvarez. He played 70 matches last year. Like, at some point, when do we as leaders and good stewards of the game, as his manager, do you say, hey, we need to manage your body? Because again, at the professional level, these guys only have so much time to play professionally. And I think people look at Lionel Messi right now and think, oh, like, hey, his body's starting to break down because he's getting old. He's been a professional for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like think about that. Like, he's been a pro as long as LeBron has been a pro.
Yeah.
Maybe longer. So, can we ask a 36-year-old player who's played, easily played over 1,000 games in his career, and we want to see him perform at a high level? So how do we manage that?
The roster sizes, right? You look at roster sizes. Yeah. Roster sizes can get bigger. When COVID came in, substitutions went from 3 to 5. You make modifications as it goes on, and everyone wants to see Lionel Messi play in every competition. But the reality is, maybe he's not playing in the first round of the Open Cup, right? Maybe as the Open Cup goes on, things change. I'll give an example, and I hate to use the English Premier League as an example, but how many times do you watch the FA Cup or the Carabao Cup and like, oh, it's a whole new team?
Yeah, kids everywhere.
Yeah. And then you're like, man, these guys look, my team's Arsenal. So Wenger always stood by it and said, look, I'm going to keep with the same boys the whole tournament. I'm going to give these guys a chance and let's see how far they go. And he had his team for the Premier League. He had his team for the Cups. And look, you're starting to see that more and more now, especially with the number of competitions that they're playing in. So is it doable? I know what you're saying, Marcus. The players, it's a lot, but it's up to the player, the managers, the ecosystem to take care of that individual if they want to, I hate to say it, want to sell more tickets, right? Which goes back to the department.
It always goes back to that bottom line.
Always comes back to tickets.
Always. All right. Well, yeah, I want to definitely see where you guys, and I'll give this one to Marcus first. Quick question that we can expand into a larger discussion. role of fan engagement right now has kind of been switching. Right now, we're doing a podcast talking about football. You have social media, which is giving people an opportunity to engage with the sport in a different way that has never happened before. Now you're getting more access with players. So, what measures at USL right now are you taking to really create that bond between the clubs and strengthen it towards the community? Like, what are you seeing right now?
The biggest thing is that USL, because we're so hyper local, we look at this, most of our fans are coming from inside 25 miles. Like, we have that data at USL. So we're hyper local, and we think it's important to be involved in the community and be a good steward, be a good community partner. And I think because of the power of the game, here you have Barcelona, big brand, who came in and played Dallas Trinity. Literally, it was Dallas Trinity's first game ever at the Cotton Bowl, and they're playing Barcelona's women, right? Right? I don't think people understand the gravity of that, the magnitude of that. But that's the power of the game. That's the, bringing something to the community that the community really wants. And, a wise man once told me, he's like, Marcus, the job is actually very, very simple. You figure out what the fans want, and then you sit back, think about how are you going to be able to give it to them. That is a very simple prospect. And for us at the local level, it's about how do we make sure we're tied in to what our community wants? How do we make sure we're tied into what our community needs? How are we being great stewards of the game? How are we making sure that we're providing opportunities at the youth level, at the adult level? What's our charity of choice? What are we doing to make sure that we're giving the community a reason to support us because we're supporting the community? And it's really not from hey, we want them to do it so we stay in business. It's like, no, if the community's thriving, we can then also thrive as well.
Agreed. Good to hear. Marley, kind of want to recontextualize for you, especially because you're already in the community, especially with these families. What are you seeing with just developing, especially for bringing in as many teams as California has? Like, it's got to be really hard to kind of control that environment and continue to make sure that the communities are first ahead of just the understanding and the bottom line for what these travel teams are doing as well. So kind of what are you seeing on the youth soccer level within California or nationwide? Like, how is that community engagement really being pushed on?
Yeah, I would say the community engagement is huge. I love working at the state association because I'm not necessarily a league. I'm not necessarily a club. I'm here to serve everyone. So like when I first took this job, the first thing I done was like, hey, Marcus, I want to connect with all of your teams, right? I want to connect with them locally. I want to connect with their leadership. I want to create an alliance and have these groups. And then I obviously went down to the Earthquakes, and then I've been very close with the BFC people, currently sitting on the Bay Area Host Committee to talk about many topics and legacy programs after the World Cup. So it's smart, starting obviously in geographical locations where you can make an impact and then kind of going out. But then it's also putting a flagpole in some places and going, how can I bring it in, or how can I just keep a pocket of soccer healthy? I think the biggest thing is you have to be more diverse. You also have to make sure that you create, again, accessibility in different ways. Like I hear this all the time. I will go to the Central Valley and I get told, hey, they don't go on TikTok. They don't go on Instagram. They come to the office and they still want to pick up game cards. And it's like, okay, so if they're picking up game cards, can we put all these different other things in front of them? Can they come in and do coaching education? And then there's some parts of the world, San Jose, where you're literally scanning a QR code and signing up for a referee course, right? So it's being able to have and understand. And I do love being here in California because tech is really on the forefront of everyone's lips and conversations. There's many startups here. We partnered with Ray-Bans, Meta, Facebook, and we have the cameras that are inside the glasses, and we just put them on soccer coaches, we put them on staff, people, and they just put the record button, just recorded different instances, and then we took out the virtual reality VR, and we started doing online meetings to see if we could do some form of education or collaboration. And I think there's things like that that eventually will come, down the road. Like when COVID came in, there was people doing virtual conferences. It was
Yeah.
nuts. They were building like the little Roblox person, right? and I think when you look at communities, right, and this is something I learned, and I commend US Soccer and I commend USU for giving me this opportunity. But when you traveled around the country, people want to talk about standardization. And sometimes standardization can be there from a baseline and a foundation. But just because I'll use a house analogy, everyone has to have a house. It doesn't mean everyone has to have the same color house, the same windows, the same type of garage, the same style door. You're still going to have a house. It's just how do you build that house and make it your own. So every community, again, like Fresno to Redding to San Jose to San Francisco to Fremont, right, to Oakland to Monterey to Salinas, like it's just a beautiful thing, and we just got to embrace it as leaders and make sure that we capture people in the community to keep soccer alive and well. And I think that people like Marcus, yourself, just continue to push the message and making sure we grab as many good people as possible and keeping them in the game so the communities can flourish,
Completely agree. Another point that I wanted to bring up, especially because how connected you are with the women's side of things for both of you. Now that the NWSL PA, their Players Association over at the NWSL, they ratified an all-encompassing change to free agency. So first time in American sports, people are completely free. They embrace the European model of being able to go wherever as long as your contract is done. So what are your thoughts on this within like how we're moving forward with the women's game? How is that going to actually affect everything now? Are people going to be thinking about going, no longer going to college to play their sport? They're just going to be like, I can just go straight 16, 17. I can rock in with the NWSL if I'm that good. USL's women, is there any thoughts of moving that way? Are you telling women now at the youth or the U17, U16 levels, like this is another leg that you can kind of keep moving forward with your professional career? Like, tell me how that change is really starting to be felt within your different spheres.
Marcus, go for it. Go for it. Amanda's in your office. So
Yeah.
you and Amanda talk about it. So.
Yeah. So I think one point of distinction, USL, we haven't really had a draft on the men's side or the women's side. So, I think it's great. Player freedom is great, for it. Because again, that's the way the rest of the world operates. I think the biggest thing is that if you're good enough, are you good enough?
That's a big piece.
I think that to me is the question. And I think, we talk about this theme of accessibility. The more teams there are, the more chances you have as a young player, whether it's, 15, 16, 17, to find a club to say, hey, look, I really want to do this. I really want to play professionally, and you get that opportunity to play professionally. So it's been happening for years. If we're really truly being honest, in some way, shape, or form, I think it's really exploded in the last decade. If you just look at how many people on both the men's and women's side are saying like, hey, we're ready. And the club is, and I think the biggest piece is the club has identified that the player is ready. But I think, one of the things that we do at USL, and, big shout out to our safeguarding department and our compliance department, is how do we ensure that the player is then equipped and empowered for success? Because you could be 16 stepping into an adult world, and there are adult issues that happen in there. So how do we make sure that we're still creating a space where that player can live out their dream, but also have guardrails and safety protocols in place so that they can grow and still mature into an adult? I think that's really the biggest thing that you'll see moving forward. It's required now and Marley, I think this is on the youth side as well. You can speak more intelligently to it. that you need to have a safeguarding officer at all of our USL clubs for this
Yeah,
exact reason. How do we make sure that if we're bringing in players that are minors, how are we providing them the support that they need, the
yeah,
guidance that they need, the safety that they need to be able to flourish?
yeah, Marcus. I'll bring up this little thing, just shifting gears from the conversation. But like, do you remember when Davey signed for the Rapids?
Yep, I remember
Davey,
it very well.
yeah, look, when Davey got there was no compliance officer.
Yep.
There was none of those things, right? And the game's evolved, and we got those things. So you look at the women's game, and you talk about like Mallory, right? I'll just use this in Lorne because I love Lorne. He's a role model for me. He's always looked out for me. But you know, Lorne was Mallory's compliance officer. Lorne made sure he was met. There was a time when Norm was like, and I remember going into the office and Jared Spies and Comegys and Russ Lenty and all the boys were there, when everyone's Neil Payne, everyone's chatting and, she had an offer to go play pro or go to college and this and that. And everyone was looking out for the players' well-being. Now, obviously, now in the game, it's evolved so much. But Lindsay, she's already played outside of this country. We have 3 Colorado girls, right, that have hit the platform at the right time, and they have been looked after financially, and they've been taken care of, and they're on this pathway to some really great things to continue to create history. So it is important that we have that side to it. And I know we're talking about the business side. So we go back to the transfer side. And look, owners, when you talk about free transfers and free contracts and being done, owners will get a player if they want a player, because then it goes back to Marcus's doorstep of selling tickets, right? So if a player they know for a fact someone's coming up, they're going to wait because they know they can inspire that player to come, change the culture, do what they need to do. But AFC, without sharing too much data on the women's side, they spent some money on some players, but they've also moved some players on, right?
Yep.
So I don't have all the facts and stats with me, but you can go look it up. They've got in and out going. Some of it's a business decision. Some of it's a roster decision, performance decision, personnel decision. It's all there. But the fact is that those things are moving. In the USL, it's a little bit different, right? They don't have a draft, so they'll wait for opportunities to pick up a player that's been on the depth chart for a long time, and they'll just say, hey, we know you like Sacramento, but Oakland's down the street. You want to roll? And it's just that easy. So
Yeah.
I think it's good that we're evolving with the times, but don't be fooled. At the end of the day, these are all business decisions that come to the bottom line, and we're just making it a little bit more transparent, which is good.
Awesome. Okay. No, definitely hear you there. Well, yeah, want to give you guys both a quick opportunity. My last question for you both. World Cup is upcoming within the next 2 years. Then we have Women's World Cup, Club World Cup coming next year. So where do you envision the trajectory of footy within the U.S. right now within the next 2 to 5 years? I don't want to even go like 10 years. I'm just talking, the world keeps changing very quickly. So what do you see over the next 2 to 5 years? Like, what growth changes do you anticipate? And how can fans and local communities contribute to growth here, especially at the youth level? Either one of you can answer that one.
I'll kick off on the youth side. I think I love today's thing, and I'm going to use it. I'm going to steal something from Marcus today. I'm going to steal accessibility. I'm going to steal accessibility. I just want to see, with all these major competitions coming into this country, that we continue to make the game accessible. And I think that whether it be with a before school program, after school program, these things are already happening, right? There's programs called like Get on the Bus. There's all these different things happening that we just continue to make the game accessible. I would hope that more volunteers get into the game at what we call the grassroots, so that beginning stage, and we continue to make exciting. As example, when Messi came to this country, we saw more Inter Miami jerseys sold, more than Beckham jerseys sold. And obviously the black market doesn't determine the data on how much jersey was sold on the black market. Right? don't think anyone was making LA Galaxy jerseys with Beckham on the back. I think Messi, for whatever reason, definitely sold more jerseys on the market. But the point is, like, it would be amazing, right, to continue to go into grocery stores, you know, department stores, and just see people with more soccer jerseys, and just make lifelong fans of the game. And I think that starts really at the youth level, and buying at the youth level. I'm sure Marcus can talk about stadium infrastructure, facilities, and all those kind of things, right?
Yeah, for me, I think it's really funny for you to ask that question, Eric, because I remember where it was.
Yeah.
Shout out WNVC, Fairfax, Virginia, Channel 56.
DC United, yeah.
Soccer in England, 30-minute show. That was, again, longest time I knew one club in England, Manchester United. That was it, because it was a Manchester United show. And I think when you look at now, you've got, USL. Just this year, we signed with CBS. You told me,
huge.
I remember telling my buddies, they were like CBS. They're like, wait, like you mean like NFL CBS? Like, yeah, CBS. Okay, CBS, and I think that just speaks to the power of the game. And the word is always going to be accessible. We haven't even touched like how much more football is out there.
Yeah.
Like, yes, it's easy now in this country to consume MLS. It's easy to consume USL. It's easy to consume NWSL. It's easy to consume Super League. It's easy to consume Copa Libertadores, where you still have a challenge. How do you view Asian Champions League? How do you view J League? How do you view K League? Right? How do you view African Cup of Nations, which may low-key be the best international tournament on the planet?
It had everything the last time.
It has everything you could possibly want. African Champions League. There's just, because the game is truly global, and you have more people that are immigrating to the U.S. You have more people that are coming, that are interested in, what's going on. Where's the next big player? Where are they coming from? Oh, I heard he's in Japan. Oh, I heard he's in Iraq. I've heard he's in Saudi Arabia. I've heard these places, and you want to be able to consume. And I think you're going to still see more networks. You start to see streaming become such a valuable tool now that if your league is not on a streaming platform, you're losing market share.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. They're losing it from that standpoint. So when I look at the next 2 to 5 years, for me, it looks like how is the consumption of the game evolving? And that now, almost by default, an American fan has at the barest of minimums 2 clubs that they really follow. It's probably a domestic club that they follow, and it's a European club that they follow. And I think that will continue to evolve in that there's going to be a Liga MX team that they follow. In addition to whether it's USL or USL Super League, you got to pick a USL club to support because that's what it is. Yeah. Right? And how do you then go out and start consuming, African leagues? How do you consume, the Saudi Arabian Pro League? How do you consume, because it's still out there. Mm-hmm. And people want it, and people are going to gravitate toward it. So for me, that's the next 2 to 5 years. Is I still think you see people clamoring for more access, more football, because it's truly global.
Yep.
Completely agree. Yeah, I've been lucky where I've gotten to work for the places that I support, outside of Arsenal FC, of course. But working for Colorado, that was a really good experience. Got New York Cosmos. And now I'm starting to support Brooklyn FC. Got to meet Timothy Weah and understand a little bit about his involvement, his investment. And it's a lot of good things going on around. Like the sport is in a very great place. I feel as though I just was having a conversation earlier, a brainstorm about how to get more fans in. And I'm like, fans are already here. You just got to be able to access them at their place. We don't need to be too arrogant about it, but people here are pretty savvy about footy now. Like, it's really lovely to see, especially Marcus. When I first started, I was feeling it. I was just like, why are people asking me about a Tim McGraw concert right now? Like, now people actually know. They wake up for the early games. Even in California, I'll never forget. I went to LA and I watched an Arsenal match at 4 a.m. over there. It was a great time. I was sitting with like around 25 people. And then as soon as 7 a.m. hit, the West Ham fans came into the crew. So people have access points and the game's in a very healthy spot. So
it is.
completely.
Here in California, we've been working with the host committee, and we came up. It's announced now, so you can go check it out. The EA Sports Campus is phenomenal, right here in California, and we talked about all different types of activations from, bringing the referees in there, them using the technology, the field, because they've got some amazing technology, and then also doing watch parties, right? Doing like
That'd be
crazy
good.
watch parties there. Like that's just it's no longer called obviously FIFA. It's called FC.
EAFC. Yep.
EAFC, right? So it's like, could you imagine when we were playing though? Well, we probably still play the video games.
I definitely still do.
Could you imagine going there as a young athlete and playing like the EAFC in the campus with all your boys in a tournament? Like those kind of cool things with watching Brazil on the big screen play USA or Mexico play Paraguay, just like that culture now for us here in this country is a real feeling, right? It's not to say it wasn't, but like it's happening, and we're gonna embrace it. We're gonna go through this journey, and hopefully the next generation that comes through will be like, did you know that this happened? Did you know this happened? And all these cool stories will be shared. I just think it's such a cool opportunity we have in front of us.
Completely agree. Thank you, gents. Well, yeah, want to leave this time for you guys to plug anything that you would like. Marcus, let's start with you.
USL is available on pretty much anywhere. You just got to find it. CBS, ESPN Plus, right on CBS Sports Network. We're on 2DN. USL Super League available on Peacock. If you're international and you're viewing this, you can get it on ESPN International. That deal just got signed. It's available. Go support your local USL club. And again, help us continue to grow this thing.
Yeah. And how will people find you?
Well, I'm on social media, but my social media is not related to football. So
no, I'm talking about LinkedIn. You can give the LinkedIn.
LinkedIn, Marcus Myrick. Very simple. That's me. Definitely get connected to me. Love to help you out. Shed some light. Love to make connections with people. And there's this old adage in this business: you never know who knows who.
Completely agree. Yeah, Marley, close us out, baby.
Yeah. Love the game. Continue to give back. Give back to you. The game's phenomenal. So I'm not gonna sell count off US soccer, US youth. I want to sell everything, right? I want everyone to be sold. So everyone that's listening, whether you're a parent, coach, player, referee, a fan looking to get into the game, if you're an athlete watching the game, please just continue to support the game, love the game, and the game will love you. And you can just Google me. I'm sure you'll find me. The name's pretty easy when you put Marley Wilson and then soccer, right? It's going to come up. There's only one guy called Bob Marley that's close to me, right? Outside of that, we'd love to connect with anyone. I'm here to grow the game. I'm always here to help. So I want the game to continue to flourish.
Appreciate it, gents. Marley Wilson, Marcus Myrick, thank you for coming on Dem Boys Watch Footy. It's your boy E. I hope you guys have a great one.